Hi, Joanna. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, so this is fun, by the way, and I'm really glad you're doing a book on Scrivener because it
Oh,
really is one of those life-changing tools for people.
I think so.
And yeah, I think it's brilliant, and I'm a real evangelist for Scrivener. I should be paid for my Scrivener evangelism, but I am
That's
not.
true. They don't have you on contract yet.
No,
Oh, they're
no,
way
but
behind.
it is amazing. So yeah, I'm keen to share.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat. Just as a brief introduction for our listeners, Joanna Penn is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, and professional speaker. She writes thrillers on the edge and business books for authors, and she also hosts the Creative Penn podcast. So you do a lot of things.
I do. I
Very
do.
busy.
But, full-time creative entrepreneur.
That's fantastic. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about the creative writing process with Scrivener, but let's start at the beginning with a little background. How long have you been writing?
Like anybody, been writing kind of a long time. Like I've been journaling since I was about 15. So, and I'm 40 next week. I'm not scared to say. So been writing kind of that. And then I worked as a management consultant for 13 years. So I did a lot of business writing. But in terms of writing non-fiction, I started my first book in 2007. I wrote my first non-fiction, and then my first fiction I started in 2009 and published in 2011. So it was definitely like a long process. And then I went full time in 2011. So yeah.
Okay, so full time. So would you say you've been writing professionally for 4 years?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I've been making my living from my writing since September 2011, and when I say that, I mean I blog, and my blog gets me speaking work and that type of thing. But yeah, so fiction and non-fiction, probably 4 years, kind of professionally.
And how long of the time that you've been writing have you been using Scrivener?
So I've used Scrivener since just after my first book. After my first fiction book. So I didn't even know about Scrivener. This is why I'm such an evangelist, because when I found out about Scrivener, so it must have been 2012, I was like, really? So I don't have to use crappy Microsoft Word? And the biggest thing for me, well, two of the biggest things are, one, you don't have to write in order. So I don't write in order either for my non-fiction or my fiction. I'm not, and with MS Word, you have to, a lot of people just write separate chapters and separate whole documents because it's so hard to chop. And so I'd organized a novel, one novel and 3 non-fiction books before that without Scrivener, and it was a nightmare.
Wow.
And then the second thing was learning that you can output the files as Kindle, Epub, all of this, so I didn't have to pay for a formatter to be a self-publisher. So those two things together are the reason I when I found out about it, I jumped on it, and pretty much, yeah, it was fantastic.
That's great.
Life-changing.
I mean, that's interesting. I hear this from a lot of people. Like the first time they see Scrivener, it's life-changing. Can you describe that process for us? Like, what was it like to see Scrivener for the first time? Was it a huge epiphany, or did you have a little bit of resistance to it?
Like everything, you go, oh, I don't need that because I'm fine. Look, I've already got books, But once I started using it, and I would say I still only use about 20% of what you can use. I mean, I
robust.
I don't know all the stuff that you probably know, but the stuff, all that I need to know is the thing you can pretty much get without, and I'm terrible, like most people, I don't do the training or the help documentation.
Right.
But all that I did, like when I bought it, well, I downloaded the free trial, as you do, and as soon as I learned that you could type stuff in and drag and drop the files around, that was it. I was sold. So that dragging and dropping functionality, that writing out of order, that was it for me. And it was only about a year later that I discovered, because I didn't do the training, I discovered about that you could format the books and output as Kindle and
Oh, wow,
ebook.
okay.
Like I didn't know that, and then I was like, really? That's amazing.
So what did you do while you were writing in it? Did you just still like pay a formatter to take what you read? Oh,
Yeah.
wow, okay. Crazy.
So now I'm really up for telling people about this stuff so that they can. I mean, it's so cheap. It's like $45.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about what changed in your process from the linear format of Microsoft Word to the nonlinear writing out of order format of Scrivener. What else changed in your writing process when you switched between the two?
Well, what I do now, and I think this is something that happens as you become more of a developed writer, like when you're writing your first book or at the beginning, you normally only have one book in your head at once. Mm-hmm. But when you're doing this for a living and when you're a bit further down the track, like I'm working in and around 7 or 8 Scrivener projects at the same time.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, in that I have, like right now, so I've got one, I've got a whole stack of projects where I've just dumped information. Like I want to write this and I just dump, it may only be like 2,000 words worth of material, but I've dumped them in a Scrivener file. So I use it for like brain dumping and I'll just create a couple of, documents and just chuck stuff in there so that I know it's there for later and I just have those. It's just quicker for me now to create a new project and have some basic structure. And then I've got I'm working on 2 nonfiction at the same time where I'm filling in table of contents and filling in the blanks. So nonfiction, I do a little bit every day, fill in a new chapter. And then fiction, I've got one that's in a first draft format, which is and plotting format, and then I've got another which is in final edits and publishing, and then I've got another that I've been recording as an audiobook, and now I have to re-update.
Wow.
And then I've got another one that I'm doing a box set, so I have to kind of import multiple files and make them into a box set.
Right.
So I've got all of these different things going at the same time, basically. So that's changed. I mean, I don't know whether I would have matured as a writer with MS Word to do it like that, but it's just, well, for example, the box set is not something you do any other way. You can't make a box set with MS Word.
Right.
So it's using Scrivener in that case for a formatting job, not a writing job, basically.
And if you were still using Microsoft Word, you'd have to hire a formatter to get them to put the box set together. Totally.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that each of these projects is at a different phase. Do you find that you always have projects at a different phase, or is there ever a situation where you're writing consistently in the same phase for 2 different projects?
No, not really.
So the rotation helps.
Yeah, the rotation definitely. I mean, like today I only had a little bit of time and I can't do fiction if I only have half an hour, but I can do non-fiction.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I kind of chuck a couple of 100 words in, and I use the word count thing like all the time. First thing I do when I open the file is open the word count, thing, whatever it's called. I'm terrible with my language. The little statistic.
Project statistics. Yes.
Yeah, so I can see my word count for that project and the date, the session count and all that type of stuff. So, yeah.
Do you use different goals for nonfiction and fiction?
In terms of word count?
Yeah, in terms of word count and the project statistics, like how you set it up. Like you could say, for example, I think my goal on a daily basis is about 1,000 words for a fiction project. If I'm in the drafting phase, I'll say I want to write 1,000 words a day. But if you're working on multiple projects, how do you manage that?
Well, I have a calendar on my wall where I just write total word count for the day. So if I've done more than 1,000 words on anything, it's quite a good day. Okay,
so when you say total word count, that's like across all the fiction and non-fiction projects.
Yeah, but I won't be working on all those things every day. Like, I'll have them kind of going at the same time, but I will just go from one to another. And of course, I still, this is the other beauty with it, I'll still open up a book, like Pentecost, my first novel. I still open up that file, which is like 3 or 4 years old or something now, and update the back matter, do another format, re-upload it. So I'm still opening files from several years ago in order to do updates to the files. Or like last year I went direct to Nook Press, so I had to go and reformat all the files for Nook. So I did all of that. So I mean, basically, I think it's really important to organize your computer as well as your file hierarchy of where
Yeah.
you put these folders, as well as like within Scrivener, you've kind of got the hierarchy of chapters and research, and like you get to know how you like to have your hierarchy. But because you use the same file to output different other files, you kind of have to organize you have to be pretty organized.
Right. Yeah. It's like I feel like when I get to work, I have to clean my desk before I can do any work. So it's the same with the file systems, right? It has to be organized and in order if you're going to manage it.
But I think Scrivener helps you get organized. Certainly with nonfiction, I don't even know how I could write nonfiction now. Because I don't. I mean, I just chuck stuff in there. I'm writing a book on mindset for authors, like psychology stuff for authors.
Yeah.
It's just all over the place. I've got about 150 one-liners.
Wow.
Like document headings, some of which are filled in, some of which will go together at some point.
Right.
It's all just brain dump at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't really plot. Like I don't use the cards very much. I mainly just use the hierarchy structure.
Okay. So I use the cards to brainstorm. How do you brainstorm or plot or plan? I mean, apart from the brain
I
dumping.
don't use the card view, I just use the hierarchy view.
Okay.
So I'll just create a new document and write in the title of the document. So I'll just have it in a hierarchy.
Yeah. So like the file tree view that's on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you also use like notebooks to come up with ideas or?
Yeah, I have a lot of notebooks. I have like several notebooks. I have 3 notebooks next to me which perform different purposes, and I have whole bookshelves full of notebooks. So yeah. And when I research, I use my notebooks or my phone, and I do write notes. Like I'll read books. I do a lot of reading books for research, and then I will type some of that into Scrivener. So I will have research files within Scrivener, and then I'll do the split screen when I'm writing that section, so that I can see the research. And I think that's important because then you can make sure you're not plagiarizing. Like you can actually make sure you're not copying it and pasting it. You can keep it in a separate area, and then you can just kind of refer to it. So I like the split screen thing as well.
Yeah, it's great because then you don't have to switch back and forth between 2 different files and try to remember what you saw and then what you're writing. You can just have them both there. So your fiction is pretty heavily researched, and I know you visit the places that you plan to write about. You do a lot of traveling. How does Scrivener play into this process? You mentioned that you take notes in a notebook and in the phone, and then is it when you get home you just dump it all into Scrivener?
Yeah, I mean, most of my traveling and stuff doesn't necessarily relate to a current project. So I mainly just fill my head with stuff.
Okay.
And then at some point it'll come back out again as material. But I mainly take a lot of pictures, but I keep them on Flickr or Pinterest.
So do you think the travel comes first and then you work them into your books afterwards?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Is there ever are you ever like, oh, I need to set this last scene in Granada, so I have to go to Granada?
That's basically how I live my life. I need to write a book on this, so now we can go there. Basically. But so the one that's on pre-order now is One Day in New York, which obviously I had to be in New York to write about. But I'm coming to Savannah in Georgia, and I'm thinking I should probably write a book while I'm in Savannah. This is all very important for tax-deductible work. People have to understand this. You can only make it tax-deductible if there is a related income source. So it's very important to organize this in advance. But in terms of Scrivener, I pretty much only put stuff in for fiction, like once I've decided which book it's going to be. So I don't normally do it on the fly or anything.
So what about the writing process? We've talked about like the brain dumping, getting everything into Scrivener, but for a fiction novel, where you might have some ideas, you might have already done the planning and the brain dumping. Tell me a little bit about the writing process. So we talked about goal tracking, but how else do you use it to help you write?
So basically with a novel, I will usually dump the one-liners of probably 10 scenes. So I'll be and and I'll know what, like the one I've just started, it's only got 3,000 words in. I knew the location for the scene, and I just wrote, murder, crossbones, Winchester, geese, whatever. And that's like my line. And then I know that's the first scene, so I'll put that at the top. And then I'll put a couple of other placeholders for other big scenes. I don't heavily outline at the moment. I'd like to, but I don't. So once I know the first 20,000 words, for example, I will then start the first draft. So then I'll be either in the library or at a cafe, and I'll open Scrivener, I'll open the word count thing. Usually with first draft fiction, I try and write 2,000 words in a go, or one complete scene, which for me is normally about 2,000 words. So I'll set the timer and plug in my headphones and type until the bar is green or until the scene is finished. And then I change I don't write them, but once I've gone through like that first thing and I've got the whole draft, I will start to edit, and then I'll use the flag feature. I change, is it flags? Anyway, I change it to yellow, like I change it from just nothing to a yellow flag when I'm like, that scene is ready for editing. And when all the flags are yellow, I print out the whole book. So I export it to Word, I'll print it out, and then I'll do my first edit by hand. And then I will get the printouts and I will enter all the changes back into Scrivener.
Okay.
So
like as comments or annotations?
No, actual as edits.
Oh, okay.
So I've like completely scribbled over my printed out version, and from one word change to move here, it needs new, whatever. So then I'll do the second draft back into Scrivener. Then depending on what it is, I might have to do that process again. Once I'm happy with that, so that's gone through a couple of iterations, I'll change as I finish the edits again per chapter, I'll change the label to blue. Once all the labels are blue, all the flags, sorry, not labels, right? Once all the flags are blue, I then have a professional editor, so I'll print it, Microsoft Word, or not print it, I'll export it to Word, send her the Word file. She will edit with track changes on Word, but then I will manually enter those into Scrivener, because I don't, one, I want to learn, but two, I don't want to necessarily use all the edits.
Right.
So I do those edits, and then I change the flag to green, and then I have a proofreader, same process, and then I publish.
Nice.
So that's basically the process.
So you say when you say enter them back into Scrivener, you just mean that you're looking at the comments or the annotations or whatever the editor left in Microsoft Word, or maybe what you wrote down on the paper, and then you're just making edits straight to the Scrivener file.
Yeah. So like here's on the video an example, and then I'll put this next to my computer, and then I'll actually type that back into Scrivener. I don't even take snapshots or anything because I have printouts.
You're brave.
Well, I'm pretty hardcore. No, I save drafts. I back drafts up in Word. And of course, if you have a Word document, you can always re-import that into Scrivener. I mean, I know some people who just accept all on an edit and then re-import the whole thing. Right. But I'm not going to do that because I'm learning. Like, I know that I make the same consistent mistakes. I don't just want to accept all because I haven't learned anything. So for me, typing it back into Scrivener is a way for me to get better as a writer, because I understand more the mistakes I'm making that way.
Absolutely. Do you ever find that you use Scrivener's comments or annotations features?
I've just started. I don't work with other people, like in terms of co-writing. I know people do that with co-writing.
Sure.
What I've started to do is my editor does a structural edit, and she gives me like an overview document of each scene and a breakdown of each scene. And I've actually started copying that thing into the site, the comments section. Okay. And then using that as a guide to the overall edit. And also it's just useful. So I've just started using that. But like I said, I really don't use much of the only thing I use is the flag. I don't even use labeling or color coding or anything
Right.
else.
Yeah, maybe I'm just a little OCD because I, color code everything for the points of view, and then I have to
Yeah, I
have the
don't do that.
labels. Is this a first draft? I know you said that you use the flag icon,
Yeah.
so you'll actually change like the icon on a specific text file within a Scrivener file that indicates to you because you have a system set up. And I think this is the important thing here is that you have a system that works for you, and whether you're using the icons with colored flags or whether you're using the status that says first draft, revised draft, final draft, it's still it's the same end result, right? But you like using the visual approach, which is fantastic. And as long as you have a system that works for you, I don't think it matters whether you're using all of Scrivener's features or not.
No, exactly. I don't. I mean, I have done webinars and things, with Joe from Learn Scrivener Fast, and I do learn things every time, but I do struggle to change my process. I'm quite happy with my process, and I think I'm pretty productive. So I'm quite happy with the way I'm working on Scrivener.
So we talked a lot about self-editing and a little bit about how you work with other editors. Do you work with other editors exclusively in Microsoft Word?
Yeah.
And that's the only tool that you use to collaborate with them? Interesting. I wonder why Microsoft Word is still the only thing that editors want to use, because I find that as well.
Yeah. Even if they're on a Mac.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on a Mac. I had to go buy Microsoft Word so that I could work with an editor, which just seems crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because of track changes, and I must say on Pages on the Mac is not as good for the track changes function.
Yeah.
So I can see that. But no, I mean that's pretty much all I do. I do that with a proofreader. And if I get any comments post-production, like a typo or anything, I will just change it in Scrivener and republish. Not a problem.
That's awesome. I've noticed that you have put up a few screencasts of your book. I think I just saw the one, but there was a screencast where you kind of walked through your files in Scrivener, and I would just love to hear a little bit more about the inspiration for that project. Did people ask for that?
Well, lots of people ask, how do you use it? And people can get that video when they sign up to my email list. So it's it's actually an email list extra.
So that's on the creativepen.com, and you sign up for the email list, and then you get access to the video.
Then you get access to that. It's with the Author 2.0 Blueprint, which is my kind of free ebook on everything to do with writing and publishing and marketing, and that's like a 40-minute video of how I use Scrivener, basically like a behind-the-scenes thing. So it's mainly because I think one big question everyone has is, how do you actually write a book? So. I think actually seeing someone's screen can help a lot, and I am an affiliate for other things, so that helps too.
Sure. Are you going to do more screencasts behind the scenes stuff, or is it just
you
the one?
saw everything that I do. I mean, this is the thing. I can't do more than a 40-minute screencast on Scrivener because that's about the extent of what I know. There are a number of other videos in that email sequence. On different other things around self-publishing and book marketing and stuff like that.
Very cool. Cool. The other thing that we haven't talked about that I know you do a lot of is blogging. Do you also use Scrivener for blogging, or do you?
I don't, and I didn't. I mean, I've been blogging since 2008, so way before my Scrivener usage, and so I didn't even know you could. I don't know. I just don't think I would. I mean, I use WordPress as my editor and I just stick drafts. But it's interesting because you end up using WordPress in a similar way as you use the Scrivener. Actually, now, I mean, you think about it, of course, having all these draft documents, you can set up you can actually put it in more of a physical layout almost. So I can see how you could, but I don't use it for blogging.
So for blogging, you write directly in WordPress, like you log into the back end, so you have to have an internet connection. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I don't. I mean, no, that's how I blog.
Awesome. I find that a lot of people, when they blog, they will like to have an internet connection because they're doing research at the same time.
Yeah, but that, I mean, I do it the other way in that I use some chapters for my non-fiction books. I'll use the chapters in in a blog post. So I will copy from Scrivener and paste into WordPress and then edit in WordPress.
Oh, interesting. Is this marketing material for the book? Like you're like, here's a little teaser.
Well,
The book's coming later.
I mean, a lot of my books come from blog posts and vice versa. So, Business for Authors, How to Be an Author Entrepreneur, came out of a number of blog posts that I wrote for my blog. And then now I use some of the other chapters as blog posts.
That's great. I love that you're repurposing stuff because it's great in both places.
I just link to it. I mean, I have certain topics I cover, and I have books that cover those topics. So yeah, they all link together, really.
So for somebody who's writing a new book that maybe they've blogged a little bit about, would it be safe to assume that the brain dumping phase where you're just putting things into Scrivener, one of the first things you should do is copy paste all those blog posts over and put them in their own files?
Definitely, but you have to be really careful when you edit, because what you'll find is words like, in this blog post and it'll be embedded somewhere and you haven't read it properly, and it's very obvious when people have used blog posts as chapters and haven't edited it properly. So it's really, so absolutely you should do that. Copy and paste everything into, like this mindset book, at the moment it's mainly made up of blog posts that I've pasted in. But one trick I've found with that is paste it in and leave the formatting. So it will look really crap because you've pasted it from WordPress. Don't just change all the formatting to be perfect. Edit it first so that or put another flag on it or something. Read through it because it will be dated. They'll have stuff in there that's like hyperlinked funnily, and so definitely do that. But you must edit.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, guys, you need to edit your books, right?
Yeah, but it's amazing how many non-fiction, this is all non-fiction, you read some non-fiction books and you're like, this is just blatantly 10 blog posts put together. And it's not, I mean, I know there's lots of people going, quick Kindle books, whatever, but I think you have to respect your readers, and writing a blog post is a different audience to a book. So just really be aware of that. And often you can split a blog post can actually inspire several chapters within a book. You can go deeper. So, anyway. Yeah,
totally. Okay, so is there anything else you use Scrivener for? Anything we missed?
Well, I mean, the main other thing is the publishing. So just, remember, like, to me, they're very, they're both the same. I mean, you have to write and you have to publish. So for me, those two things, I mean, it is the number one tool that I recommend people get for those reasons. Like, if you're self-publishing, you should have Scrivener. It's just a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Do your formats, like, so we have the Mobi and we have Epub, and you mentioned earlier that you had to reformat something for Barnes & Noble store. Do you,
all I do is change I have, like, a number of other books by Joanna Penn kind of links, and what the file for Nook has links to Nook, the file for Kobo has the links to Kobo.
Oh, I see. So you're keeping them on the same store. So if they bought it from Barnes & Noble, you link back to Barnes & Noble.
I can't use the same EPUB on Kobo, Nook, and iBooks.
Right.
I have to reformat 3 different EPUBs, each with the different back matter. And you don't have to do it that way. You can link to one web page, but it just makes sense. If people are buying from that store, you want them to be able to buy the next book from that store. So it takes a little bit more time, but you can copy and paste from another file, and just add the next thing on the bottom. So it's not that. Sometimes I have made a mistake and not uploaded the Nook file to Kobo and stuff.
Yeah.
You have to be organized with this stuff. But,
absolutely. Yeah. But apart from the URLs changing, I mean, the formatting is the same, right? I want people to understand, when they go to think about this and they're like, oh, that sounds like so much work, I don't want to do that. But all we're saying is that the formatting of the content of the book itself stays the same, and it's just like the URLs and the back matter and the front matter that's changing.
Yeah, but I also think that people need to understand that you don't just press one button and it outputs perfectly. I mean, for every time I publish, I compile to Kindle format, and then I plug in my Kindle and I put the file on the Kindle and I have a look, and I have to change. There's always something you have to change.
Sure.
Like, you've forgotten this flag or that thing, or you've got you find something. So I probably end up formatting like 4 times now, finding little things, little flag things. And you do have to do, I would say you have to put aside like an hour or two to do your formatting.
Yeah, absolutely. If you use your Kindle to test Mobi files, which is the file format for the Amazon store, what do you use to test Epub files for Barnes & Noble and the others?
I just use iBooks on my
okay.
Mac. I know it's probably not so good, but...
No, I think that's perfect. I would use iBooks to test it too, especially because I only have a Kindle. I don't have like a Kobo reader. I don't have a Barnes & Noble reader. But I know that you can go download, like if you don't have a Kindle, you can go download the Kindle testing software, install it on your computer, and then you get like a generated image of it.
You can also, like when you self-publish, you can look at the previewer on Amazon, and you can look at a phone versus a Fire versus a whatever. So I just have a Paperwhite, so I just test it on a Paperwhite. No, you can't possibly test it on every single device.
Sure.
But it's more about things like, have you, because there's use as is or format the title page, for example. Do you, is your font completely ridiculous? Do your hyperlinks work? Does your table of contents appear correctly? That's like a trick for people with the drop down, the hierarchy folders on Scrivener. Like it can get quite complicated. I don't get complicated, but it can get complicated. So you have to make sure that it comes out the way you want. But it's not that complicated once you know what you want and you know what you're doing, and you make the same mistakes every time. So you just fix the things that I don't want people to think it's a big deal, but you do have to spend some time getting to know it. Yeah.
Totally. Okay, cool. So let's take a step back for a second and just speculate a little bit about the future of creative writing tools. Where do you see the future of creative writing tools going, say, in the next 10 years? I mean, I feel like Scrivener is the best thing that we have now, but certainly it's not the end game.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I'm very satisfied with it. I mean, I suppose it might be good to be able, to add in a marketing level, for example. I mean, there is the word frequency thing, but like a keyword, almost like a keyword analysis thing, where it would say, it would give you recommendations for keywords, or would somehow integrate with Kindle Trends or other Kindle Samurai, where you could just open another box and it would say, it looks like you're talking about this, maybe you could use this type of keyword.
Right.
That would be cool. I also think it doesn't really do files for print. There are other things that you can do for print, but that would be nice. I mean, at the moment you have to output to Word and then sort that out. Like a nice print-on-demand PDF, formatted PDF would be great. I mean, I'm pretty happy right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I know you said you don't do much collaborative writing, but I think one of the things that especially somebody who is working with another writer might love to see in Scrivener is like an actual collaborative feature where 2 people can work in the same file at the same time, kind of like Google Docs does, right?
Yeah.
But Scrivener now, if you try to do that and you're both working in the same file at the same time and you don't have like a system in place for it, you can overwrite each other's changes. You can, like somebody could be working on a chapter and you save on your end and it's gone. That could be a disaster.
Yeah.
So I know that they've been talking about it, but I think that would be like on the top of my list if I had to put one together.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Are there any other technology that inspires your writing?
No, not really. No.
So, it's a little bit of a leading question, but I know you've talked about Oculus Rift a lot. I'd love to hear more about like where you see writing going with the future of technology.
Well, I just think Oculus Rift, gaming, I think Second Life. Like Second Life, I did a podcast on Second Life like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And most people aren't even really aware of Second Life.
Yeah.
If people aren't, it's like well, it's not even a social network. It's like another life online. You can enter as an avatar, and you can have a job, and you can meet people. You can go to clubs. You can have sex, virtual sex. You can learn. There are universities. You can buy books. You can buy clothes. I now know two people. One person who sells virtual clothing, and the other person who sells virtual furniture. And these are full-time jobs now. They do not make physical stuff. Virtual clothing for avatars and virtual furniture for your virtual house. And they're making really good money. And
Wow.
I see Oculus Rift bought by Facebook, which is a virtual reality headset technology, which they say is the first VR that doesn't make you feel sick. So as in you actually feel like you're in VR. So like you and I would actually be in the same room. We would feel like we were in the same room instead of you being on a tiny screen on my screen. We could meet in say Second Life with our VR on.
Wow.
Have a drink, whatever, but bought by Facebook for a couple of reasons. One, education. So education, instead of just, everyone's buying online video courses.
Mm-hmm.
You don't. You go to your Second Life university or your Oculus Rift university, and I sit next to you in a class, and I turn my head, and you're next to me, like my friend in class, and we're actually in the university within VR. So that's the one thing, learning, and then obviously gaming, and obviously sex. I mean, these are big money industries. So in terms of writers, I believe non-fiction, I will be teaching in VR. So instead of, it's a shame. Like I'm coming to America in a couple of weeks, going to Charleston, speaking there. Maybe I won't be speaking in Charleston. Maybe I'll be speaking in Second Life on Oculus, for example. And you will feel like that I'm right there with you, and it will be much more interactive. As one thing, and that will radically change education, which is one thing I know Facebook are really interested in. Second one, with gaming, as for fiction authors, this is immersive experience, and a lot of people are writing for games, and I see this as very much a future technology. And then, like coming back to Second Life, which I'm definitely going to revisit soon. I know people who have like writers' communities on Second Life where their avatars go and have a writer's retreat on a virtual island, and they sit in a room. Like we might say, right, I'll meet you at 3 on the island, and we go and our avatars sit in the room and write, and you and I are writing as well, but our avatars are like surrounded by books. We can sell our books in Second Life. We can do all this stuff. Anyway, I am quite excited about this because I now know, like, of course we know people who are making money selling books online, right? I wouldn't have known that 5 years ago, and now I'm meeting people who are selling virtual clothing, virtual, stuff in Second Life. Now I see with Oculus Rift, it's gonna make it mainstream because people are actually, instead of like a sad little avatar, which is what it looks like to me right now, it will be me going in my headset. So these, I'm always early with this stuff. This is totally not this year. This is probably This is probably 2017, and I'm chronically early on all technology, and therefore I tend to lose money first. But I think that VR for authors, we have to think about how we can change things to fit there. And the best thing is, doesn't matter, like Scrivener, whatever, that's how you create the work. What it turns into later, we can do whatever we want with. So I think the way we sell our work will change. I would quite happily sell my books virtually in Second Life or virtually on Oculus Rift at a big event, whatever, in a virtual bookstore. Maybe that's the future of bookstores. They'll be virtual.
Virtual bookstores. Wow, that blows my mind. And your speaking business too, right? You mentioned this briefly. You could speak all over the world in VR, which would just be crazy.
That would upset me, because part of the reason I speak is travel.
Sure, yeah.
But no, I really think it is exciting, and I think I don't think it has much to do with Scrivener, but it has a lot to do with creating our future.
Well, and they're all interconnected, right? Like you said, Scrivener is what we use to create the work, and then how it gets distributed afterwards is, it's a different situation. It's a different phase of the production process, but if Scrivener is going to compete in this market, like where virtual reality is a big thing, they need to kind of adapt and see how they would adjust to fit those sorts of technologies or those platforms. I mean, right? Like or Oculus Rift is not just a technology; it's a whole platform.
Yeah, it's a platform. So I think exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exciting times ahead. Okay, so we almost done. Sorry, I have to.
Yes, no, it's totally okay. Last question: where can people find you and your work online?
Yes, so come to thecreativepenn.com, and that's pen with a double N. And there you can find the Author 2.0 Blueprint, which is all about writing, publishing, marketing, and my podcast, the Creative Penn Podcast, which is on iTunes and Stitcher and all that. And my fiction is at jfpenn.com. So and I'm on Twitter at the Creative Penn. That's
Fantastic.
my social network.
Thank you so much, Joanna. It's been great to talk to you.
Oh no, thanks very much, Matt.
All right, bye for now.